Hi everyone, it's Evangeline here at Etrailer, and today we'll be taking a look at the Kuat NV 2.0 2-bike rack right here on our 2020 Ford Fusion. So the Kuat NV is probably one of my favorite bike racks. It just checks off all the boxes. It has all the premium features you could ask for. It has the weight capacity, you can add a ramp to it, you can add fat tire bikes to it. Pretty much anything you ask of it, it could probably do. So we'll take a look at some of the features of this bike rack, but our main focus today is how does it work with your Ford Fusion? So one of the features we'll look at is the tilt away feature. We have a lever right over here. You're going to want to pull that lever and just let that NV drop down to tilt. Notice that even though we have a pretty good tilt and a pretty low hitch on our Ford Fusion, it does not hit the ground, so that's good to see. Now, why do you want to tilt your bike rack away? Well, you can keep your bikes on and access your trunk. So you can see here on our Ford Fusion, we have plenty of clearance between our trunk and our pedals and our handlebars, giving us all of this extra room in order to get inside of our trunk and grab whatever we need. So whether it's our waters, our helmets, our bags, we can grab them without having to take the bikes off, which also means you can get back onto the road that much faster. So let's talk about the way our bike is mounted here. So this has a 60-pound weight capacity per bike. If you have your heavy electric bikes, perfectly fine. If it goes beyond that 60-pound weight capacity though, which I know some e-bikes do, maybe you might have to be looking at some other bike racks that we have. But this bike rack holds down our bike by 2 points. We have the wheel strap in the back, and we have this front wheel mount. I like pretty much any bike rack that has that front wheel mount just because it makes my life so much easier. Like I have our women's frame bike here. If I use a bike rack with a traditional hook, sometimes I actually need to get a frame adapter bar. That's the same issue with kids bikes and step-through bikes. Here, I don't have that issue. Also, if I have a carbon fiber frame bike, those traditional hooks could possibly warp or crack my frame. With this, I don't have to worry about that either. So if I want to take my bike off, I would then start by the wheel strap. So we have this lever here. Press that lever and then lift up on the strap. And what I like to do is just kind of leave this over to the side so it doesn't get caught up in our spokes. Then we go over here to the front and we hold the bike with one hand so it doesn't tilt back towards our Ford Fusion. We press this button there, lift that up, push that out, and from here we can just lift our bike out of the way. And if you have a heavier bike, you can get the access ramp and just ramp it out of the way. So from here, we just leave our bike to the side because I want to take a closer look at the bike rack itself. So let's take a look over here at the trays. We have these wheel straps, and these can be adjusted back and forth for your different wheelbases. The maximum wheelbases can carry is up to 50 inches. You have your thick strap down here that ratchets down to secure your wheel. You also have an integrated cable lock on each tray. So that way if you have one bike or two bikes mounted, you can lock them both down and it's integrated into the bike rack. Another thing to look at is over here at the front, which is our front wheel cradle. Notice how we have those different grooves. So whether you have your thinner tires or your wider tires, you can carry them. Now the maximum tire width this can accommodate without the separate strap kit is 3 inches for that one side. If you have two fat bike tires, definitely take a look at our fat bike adapter kit. Now we talked about our front wheel mount earlier. This also secures your bike by your front wheel, and it also folds down to be a little bit more neat. Now, when you have anything attached to your hitch on your vehicle, there's going to be some length added to the back of it. So we'll take some measurements just to see exactly how much. Measuring from our bumper to the end of the bike rack, in our case here, we have a bike repair stand, and that sits at about 29 inches of length added. So pretty decent length. It's just something to consider whenever you back into your garage or park into a tight spot. Please don't forget that you have both bikes and a bike rack behind you. Now, a very important measurement on the Ford Fusion is going to be ground clearance. So measuring from the end of the bike rack to the ground, it sits at 16 3/4 inches. Compare that measurement to our shank measurement, which is going to be 7 3/4 inches. So, like any other sedan, the hitch on here sits kind of low compared to your taller SUVs or your trucks. So ground clearance is always going to be something you're going to have to think about, especially when you go up those steep inclines like your driveways or your hills. You'll want accessories that have that shank rise so that your bike sit higher up off the ground, like what we have here. Now, another thing we'll take a look at is the portable or the compact position. So to put it into that position, you have that lever right over here. Pull that lever again, and then this time you're gonna fold the bike rack up. So it looks like it comes close, but if you look closer, you'll see we have plenty of clearance. So closest point is gonna be from our bumper to that front wheel mount, and we have about 1.5 inches of clearance, so more than enough for my hand to fit through there. And since the Kuat NV is a super sturdy bike rack, it's not getting any closer than that. Length added to the back of our vehicle is going to be from that bumper again to where that tray is, about 5.5 inches. Now it sits out further over here towards the bottom, and that sits at about 11 3/4 inches of length. So big difference compared to when this is folded down. If you plan on driving around the city a lot and you're not planning on taking your bike rack off a lot, you can just keep it like this, and it doesn't take up much space behind your Ford Fusion. With it folded up though, notice how our rear window is completely visible. Our taillights sit up above the bike rack, so those are visible too. Now our license plate is kind of covered, although our backup camera, you can still pretty much see everything behind you, so that's going to be nice. I do like the camera on the Ford Fusion because you have that great visibility. Even though we have this bike repair stand, notice how that comes out, making it easier for you to repair your bike when you're on the road. That does cover it. If you're super concerned about that, you could get the Kuat NV base that does not have that bike repair stand, or just carry this bike rack around in the lowered position. But let's talk about how this fits into our hitch. So the Ford Fusion has some different options when it comes to the hitches you can put on there. You can get 1.25 inch hitch, you can get a 2-inch hitch. I always recommend getting a 2-inch hitch if possible, but I understand sometimes you already have 1.25 inch on there. Whichever hitch you have, you can get the Kuat NV in that version. So you can get it with 1.25 inch shank or a 2-inch shank. What I have here is a 2-inch shank because I have a 2-inch hitch receiver. This includes a hitch pin and a lock. Now that lock is keyed like to the locks you can find at the end of the tray. Now all you need to do is just pop this into your hitch and then tighten this down with this anti-rattle knob. So it's a tool-free install too. You don't need sockets, you don't need wrenches. You just tighten down this knob and it extends a ball cam, creating an anti-rattle effect. Let me demonstrate that anti-rattle effect. As we shake our bike rack, just to kind of simulate that road sway and that road vibration going over those bumps, I'm really just moving the car at this point, showing how secure that fit is between both the bike rack and the vehicle, even though you didn't have to use a wrench to tighten it down. So, my personal thoughts about this bike rack is, for one, I really like the look of pretty much any Kuat bike rack. This is a bit more sporty. You have that extra weight capacity. You have that extra capacity for your wheelbases as well as your tires. You saw how we had really good clearance when we tilted it away to access our trunk. If you're looking for something not as big, maybe the Kuat Sherpa is a better option for you. That's a little bit more compact, a little bit more portable, but the same nice design. Also, speaking of design, what I have here is the Kuat NV in gray with the orange accents, but you can also get this in metallic black, or if you get the Kuat NV base, that's in matte black. So depending on your trim, you also have options there. I also like how you have options when it comes to the shank. I know for the Ford Fusion has those different hitches, so it's nice to see how you can get the hitch or the shank to match your hitch. So all in all, hopefully this helped you out with figuring out if this is the right fit for you. Some similar bike racks in its category would be, let's say, the Yakima On-Ramp. That one has the ramp included with it. So if that's going to be a major feature for you, that's the option. Since your Ford Fusion sits kind of low to the ground though, might not be as big of a deal. So you got your pros, you have your very minor cons, which is that this is a heavy bike rack, and hopefully this helped you decide if this fits your bikes as well as your Ford Fusion. But all in all, that was a look at the Kuat NV 2.0 2 bike rack here on our 2020 Ford Fusion.